Good morning, Prof and classmates. I'm Nisha and we are Group 5. In this video presentation, we will be highlighting our ethical culture audit findings on these two well-known companies, Nestle and Kellogg's. For the order of presentation, kindly refer to the bottom right of this slide. In this presentation, we will firstly analyze Nestle. After going through the brief background of the company, we will delve deeper into the three ethical dimensions we have chosen, mainly discrimination, advertising and promotion, and production practices. In each ethical dimension, we identify whether there is an alignment or misalignment of their formal and informal systems. Second, we will analyze Kellogg in the same manner. Third, we will apply ethical theories to compare and contrast the ethical cultures between the two companies. And lastly, we will conclude the presentation with our recommendations for Nestle and Kellogg respectively. Now, I'll pass the time over to Mitchell.
Thank you, Nisha. I will now be covering our analysis of Nestle. Under our analysis of Nestle, I will be going through the background and discrimination practices for Nestle. Adam will then cover the advertising and promotion and production practices for Nestle. Nestle is currently the world's largest food and beverage company, founded in 1866, and today it has an extensive product line with various brands such as Maggi, Nescafe, and Kit Kat. Nestle also has a large global presence, operating in over 191 countries. Nestle has stated its purpose is to enhance the quality of life and contribute to a healthier future. Nestle is guided by its core values of full legal compliance, honesty, fair dealings, integrity, and respect. Moving on to discrimination under Nestle. Under its code of ethics, Nestle states that they embrace diversity and respect the personal dignity of their fellow employees. They are committed to providing equal opportunities from the point of recruitment until the end of their working relationship. More recently, in 2019, Nestle embarked on its Gender Balance Acceleration Plan in hopes of increasing the number of women in senior management positions to 30% in 2022. However, over the years, Nestle has had several discrimination lawsuits filed against them. And in 2006, Nestle was found to have discriminatory pre-employment tests, which negatively impacted females and minority applicants. Questions in these tests were found to be irrelevant as they pertain to gender and ethnicity rather than job-related questions. Hence, it was found that Nestle's informal systems are not aligned to its formal codes of ethics. Despite having a strong formal system against discrimination, these systems are not reflected in their actual practices. I will now pass on the time to Adam, who will continue with our analysis for Nestle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. Next on Nestle's advertising and promotion practices. Their formal system indicates that they want to enhance the quality of life and contribution to a healthier future for their customers. In a formal policy published by Nestle in 2017, they indicated they are committed to promote, protect, and support breastfeeding by educating parents and caregivers on the appropriate breastfeeding practices. By committing to the policy, Nestle voluntarily complies with the World Health Organization's International Code of Marketing Breast Milk Substitutes. This means that Nestle should be held responsible when marketing infant formulas to the general public. However, what we found out from their informal system is that Nestle aggressively markets its infant milk formulas as closest to, inspired by, or following the example of human breast milk in several countries. This is a violation of the WHO policies as they adopted a strict code of advertising banning the promotion of baby milk products as being in any way comparable to breast milk. In South Africa, the firm used sucrose in infant milk formulas while marketing its Brazilian and Hong Kong formulas as being free of sucrose for the baby's good health. Next, this is one example of Nestle's advertisement in Hong Kong, where they marketed their infant formulas as even closer to lactating secretion or breastfeeding. This is an evident violation of the World Health Organization policy that Nestle was trying to comply with. Therefore, there is a misalignment between Nestle's formal and informal system as they are not strictly complying to the policy they implemented. There are multiple instances of Nestle violating their own policy of responsibly marketing of breast milk substitutes. Next, I'll move on to the production practices of Nestle. Nestle implemented the Coca-Cola plan to tackle the problem of child labor. The plan aims to improve the life of Coca-Cola farmers and the quality of their product by eliminating the use of child labor. Nestle Coca-Cola plan states that child labor is unacceptable. With that said, they are the first company to come up with the child labor monitoring and remediation system, where Nestle's representative will actually visit farms and households of all the Cook's farmers and raise awareness about child labor. They then can provide help to these children for their financial and educational needs. Additionally, suppliers must also follow a responsible sourcing standard that states that the minimum age of employment to be 15 years old and above, and this complies with the International Labour Standard. However, in Nestle's informal system, there are multiple reports stating that Nestle's farm still hires child workers, and when being questioned, they are labeled as family workers since there are no strict age verification system in these farms. In some cases of child labor, these children were beaten, barely fed, or received no salary for the work they've done. When being asked about these issues, representative from Nestle's could not guarantee that any of their chocolates were produced without child labor. To date, Nestle can only trace up to 49% of its global Coca-Cola supply to farms. Since the remaining 51% of Coca-Cola supply from farms were untraceable, whether child labor was used in producing it was naturally undetectable. Therefore, there is a misalignment between their formal and informal systems, since Nestle's child labor monitoring system was not actually enforced onto the farmers despite being implemented more than 10 years ago. Even with its commitment to eliminate the use of child labor, they are not actively tracing the other 50% of Coca-Cola supply. Hence, how can they even claim that they are trying to sustainably grow, source, and manage their supply chain when half of their supply is still untraceable? Next, moving on to the analysis of Kellogg's. Ying will be covering the background, discrimination, advertising and promotion practices of Kellogg's. The production practices will then be covered by Mannat. So over to you, Ying.
Thank you, Adam. Now, I will bring you through the analysis of Kellogg. Kellogg is an American multinational food manufacturing company producing cereals and convenient foods such as Frosted Flakes and Pringles. Operating in over 180 countries, Kellogg aims to enrich and delight the world through food and brands that matter. Through their values integrity, accountability, passion, humility, simplicity, and lastly a focus on success, Kellogg have created an inclusive and diverse culture where ideas can blossom, people can thrive, and success can flourish. Moving on to discrimination, Kellogg's commitment to diversity can be traced back to their founder, who was a pioneer in employing women in the workplace and reaching across cultural boundaries. The company continues this legacy by making diversity and inclusion the top priority. Kellogg embraces diversity through hiring and retaining a diverse workforce, creating awareness of diversity issues, fostering a supportive and positive environment where inclusive behaviors are the norm, and most importantly, embedding accountability for diversity throughout the entire organization. It also aims to counter gender discrimination by having a quota of 50% female representation in management positions by 2030. From the Glassdoor reviews, many employee reviews support claims of the non-discriminatory system, thereby reflecting Kellogg's ethicality in tackling discrimination. There were also no discrimination issues or lawsuits surfaced for Kellogg. This shows that the informal system to a large extent is in alignment with what is outlined under the formal system. So to promote honest marketing practices, Kellogg strives to maintain a high ethical marketing standard of their food by truthfully and accurately representing their products and avoiding misleading consumers' communications. As a member of the International Food and Beverage Alliance, Kellogg is committed to empowering consumers to make informed choices through clear nutritional information on product labels and restricting advertising to children under 12 years old, while ensuring any child-directed marketing is compatible with healthy behaviors. However, Kellogg's Rice Krispie advertisement came under fire when they falsely advertised it to improve children's health. The Kellogg's packaging has a misleading claim that it is able to boost a child's immunity with 25% daily value of antioxidant and nutrients, which includes vitamin A, E, C, and also E, without being backed by any scientific evidence. Also, Kellogg was found breaching the children's advertising code when it featured advertisements of Cocoa Pops, a chocolate cereal, during shows primarily viewed by children. As Cocoa Pops contain a high level of sugar, it is not suitable to advertisement for children. Therefore, despite claiming that they will display a high level of ethical marketing, there were still multiple breaches of commitments that they claimed to adhere to in their former documents, causing a misalignment. So these are just some of a few controversial packaging that Kellogg's have received. As seen on the right, it has also claimed to help improve kids' attentiveness by nearly 20% with no scientific evidence again, which is a form of deceptive marketing. Now, I'll be passing the time to Mannat to continue the analysis.
We're now going into an ethical comparison to review what men such as Kant and Johal have to say about how these companies operate. Beginning with the topic of discrimination. In general, discrimination can be considered unethical using Kant's first categorical imperative. Assuming the maxim for companies, I should be allowed to discriminate against all women and minorities. We find that this maxim cannot be universally applied, because applying this would mean that these groups of discriminated individuals will become unmotivated and angry. The result is loss of economic productivity and social unrest. For instance, we can draw many parallels between this and the Black Lives Matter protests in the USA earlier this year, which arose as a result of discriminatory treatment towards Black individuals in the USA. Hence, considering Nestlé's track record of discrimination, we consider them unethical, while Kellogg's remains ethical. That being said, some of the tools used by Kellogg to alleviate discrimination are questionably ethical. Affirmative action refers to when an individual's color, race, gender, or otherwise are taken into account to increase opportunities for these individuals because of the belief that they are underrepresented in society. Traditionally, and still today, women are largely underrepresented in management positions, and it is believed that this is a result of gender discrimination. Hence, Kellogg is aiming for 50% female representation in managerial positions by 2030. In this case, we believe that the action is corrective because it aims to rectify the fact that women's progress can be impeded within an organization, and women can experience challenges that often do not apply to men. Taking a look at rule utilitarianism. Equal board representation will help represent the views of each gender and balance their strengths and weaknesses, which will in turn increase profits and lead to greater happiness. In this case, affirmative action as a rule would be ethical. However, in many cases, a less qualified woman may get the position to meet the quota, which results in decreased productivity and decreased profits, resulting in less happiness. Hence, the outcome of such quotas need to be investigated further through research to ascertain for certain whether overall quotas lead to higher or lower productivity. But moving on to Kant's first categorical imperative, we find that it offers clearer insight into whether quotas are ethical or not. Assuming a maxim, in all industries, women should be represented at 50% on boards. Universally applied, this will result in inefficiencies and unproductivity. For instance, in the IT industry, the ratio of skilled males far exceed women, and hence it will be completely economically implausible for quotas to be implemented here. Hence, under Kantian theory, we deem the use of affirmative action to reduce the impacts of discrimination to be unethical. I will now pass the time to Vera, who will continue on with the ethical comparison.
Thank you, Mannat. Are Nestle and Kellogg ethical in their advertising strategies? They definitely are not. Here's why. The purpose of advertising is for the companies to communicate with their existing and potential customers. This contributes greatly to the market efficiency and subsequently providing overall happiness. However, both companies are found to have violated their advertising strategies by providing false and inaccurate information, which leads to consumers being deceived, lowering their overall happiness and trust towards the companies. Thus, both companies are unethical in the aspect of advertising. To evaluate Nestlé's production practices, we have made use of Rawlson's Principles of Justice 1, where child laborers should have the right to be treated in accordance with the rule of law. International Labour Organization states that children under age of 13 are restricted from working. However, Nestle was found guilty of child labour. Also, applying the veil of ignorance to test for fairness, with no one knowing who the children are, we know that they exist as an impartial group tasked with designing a new society with its conception of justice. Ignoring these facts, these children may be underprivileged and no one would support child labour as they are aware of the detrimental effects on the child's physical and mental development. Thus, Nestle is unethical in their production practices. Just like you and I, we are the consumers and the general public. We will see Kellogg as ethical when it comes to their promotion practices. Why? Kellogg is against deforestation. Hence, they only work with suppliers who have deforestation-free policies. Applying rural utilitarianism, the overall consequences would be to reduce global warming, resulting in a better environment for everyone. The overall impact on the climate would be great as collectively we are all able to live with a cleaner air, and thus Kellogg is ethical if we argue with this theory. Is Kellogg not supporting deforestation a good decision? This can be argued with ag utilitarianism. We evaluated their production practices with this ethical theory and we found that Kellogg is actually unethical. Why? With perspectives of the government from less developed countries, deforestation creates job opportunities for the locals, which may also provide them with higher salaries. Additionally, the impact of deforestation by a single company like Kellogg is unlikely to be monumental in contributing towards global warming. Thus, Kellogg can also be seen as unethical towards the local who are in need of a job if we argue under ag utilitarianism. I will now pass my time on to Nisha, who will be covering the last part of our presentation.
Thank you, Vera. Overall, from the different aspects we have analysed, Kellogg appears to be the more ethical company. Next, we look at recommendations. For Nestle, we suggest that they implement more frequent and stricter checks to ensure that the systemic discrimination is identified and resolved as quickly as possible. For example, they should no longer have pre-employment tests that give candidates of different gender or race an added advantage. Instead, they should work towards being fair to all candidates and employees. This is to ensure that Nestle will be more objective as an employer. From the advertising and promotion aspect, Nestle can conduct more trainings to educate their teams on ethical marketing and advertising standards. And internal audits can also be done to verify marketing efforts. To improve production practices as a whole, they should strictly enforce the Nestle Cocoa Plan in order to adhere to responsible sourcing standards. They should also continue to trace their cocoa supply to farms aiming for 100% traceability in the near future. For Kellogg, we recommend that the quota for diversity remains achievable and reasonable. After that has been implemented, they should focus on building a work environment where diversity is something that the company generally looks for, rather than it being a forced quota. Next, similar to Nestle, Kellogg has to conduct trainings and internal audits to improve the ethicality of their advertising and promotional efforts. Lastly, Kellogg's production practices are on the right track. Thus, they should ramp up efforts to ensure that they are ethical in every stage of the global supply chain. More than just deforestation-free policies, Kellogg should increasingly award contracts to suppliers who have conversion-free policies. This ensures that all natural ecosystems remain untouched in the process of pursuing their business objectives. Kellogg should also have on-the-ground investments in palm oil sustainability projects such as conservation projects in major palm oil exporting countries in order to resolve the human-wildlife crisis. All in all, we hope our presentation has provided insight into Nestle and Kellogg, particularly their ethics. Working on this project has made us realize that the bowl of cereal at breakfast is more than meets the eye. With that, thank you for your kind attention.